Welcome to Optimus Fantasy Football, folks, where there is no offseason. Today, we are breaking down the QBs attending the 2026 Senior Bowl before we hit the ground in Mobile on January 26th. From SEC darling Garrett Nussmeier to Division I North Dakota State Bison quarterback Cole Payton, we've got you covered right here. Hey, everybody, I'm Nate Paulvote.
And I'm Cam White, here covering the 2026 Senior Bowl preview, walking through our QBs today.
Let's talk about our top three. The first one of those is going to be Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Honestly, Cam, he's probably the most exciting prospect we're going to see here at the Senior Bowl. Seems to be the most pro-ready, coming out of a more pro-ready program ahead of guys like Diego Pavia and Taylen Green. But with Nussmeier, he just shows a lot of pro traits, right? Like out of the gate, he's really quick to recognize defenses, great pre-snap reads, the things that we're really looking for in these guys to excel in Mobile.
I see him recognizing his advantages early, throwing it down the sideline. This is a guy that I think will throw into contested situations. He really trusts his arm and throws with anticipation down the sideline. There's some things that I really, really like about him. I like that he's throwing to the dump off at running back. He will throw it away. He's not one that's going to take a bad sack, which some of these young quarterbacks, it's really tough to know what they're going to do when they face pressure. And I think Nussmeier has a good skill set in his back pocket when he's under center.
Well, and one of the things, and you spoke to it here, we see some of these quarterbacks in college and they carry it to the pros where they'll do this thing where they run backwards. Like they think they're playing Madden or something, right? They think they're the Konami quarterback. We see Shooter Sanders do it. We've seen Cam Ward do it this season. Nussmeier doesn't do that. He does what a lot of the upper level pro quarterbacks do, where he steps into the pressure. He tries to avoid in front of where the pressure's coming from. Another thing I really, really like about him, he isn't especially mobile, but when he needs to get out of pressure, he can. And he doesn't need to have his feet set to throw. We've seen him get down the field accurately under pressure. And LSU had a tough season. This wasn't one of those high-level LSU seasons where they're competing for a national championship like they are most years. Fired their coach, went out and got Lane Kiffin because of it. But Nussmeier, under pressure, was still making the throws. He didn't seem rattled. He didn't seem like he was thrown off of what he was looking for in a play. He continued through his reads, which really impresses me. And he didn't have the best wide receiver set like they've had some years at LSU, Cam.
I think that's one of the things I saw some growth in moving from 2024 to 2025 was his ability to throw without having his feet set. He's able to generate a lot of power from his upper body, getting these throws out quickly, whether it's going to be a quick wide receiver screen, a slant. He can get the ball over into the middle of the field without really having his base perfectly set. Some of the things that I was looking for him to improve, I would like to see him improve his footwork because there's times where he's not perfectly set and he's losing some of that power. He's not transferring the energy from his lower body into his upper body. And he's just kind of losing some of that velocity. So I think if he works on his footwork, we're probably going to have those problems get corrected. I did notice when we were watching his film, particularly against Clemson from this year, rolling to his left and throwing, he wasn't very accurate. He was throwing a lot of balls into the dirt, but he was accurate and had that footwork in place rolling to his right, which we see it with a lot of these right-handed quarterbacks. So just something to call out that while we're saying he's not necessarily a mobile quarterback, he can roll out of the pocket and complete some passes downfield with accuracy when he's going to his right.
Yep. Now, I'm not comparing him to Joe Burrow, but that's a very Joe Burrow-esque quality where you're not going to design runs for the guy unless maybe you're going to try and do a tush push with him. Not really a big enough guy to do that with.
It surprised me a little bit. He had some trick plays that I was watching where he got up to the line on 3rd and short, 4th and short, and acted like he was audibling, and then did have some sneaks. Not necessarily the tush push, but in those short yardage conversion things, I think he's got enough to make some plays up there with some trickery.
Oh, I know. I definitely agree. Now, the next one we're going to talk about, Diego Pavia, far more mobile, runner-up for the Heisman this season. He had something to say about it. We have surmised that might be part of why he's coming to Mobile. He needs to prove he's not a brat because he came off a little bit bratty after that whole whining about the vote of the Heisman. Here's my problem with Pavia. I think that the voters had a legitimate reason to give it to Mendoza over Pavia. and I really worry about him coming into the NFL. He's athletic. He moves well in the pocket. He doesn't immediately bail under pressure, but the problem is his arm accuracy, right? He's not especially accurate deep. His mid-range throws tend to sail, and on the short throws, he's accurate, but unless you've got a good yak guy there, wherever he ends up, you're not going to get much out of those plays. I think Pavia is a guy who's probably going to end up a second or third round pick, but I don't know. I wasn't excited as I was with Nussmeier watching him.
Yeah, you're calling out the same things that I saw. The deep accuracy was a problem that I saw. Intermediate was kind of hit or miss. He wasn't throwing with good ball placement, but everything in the short area of the field, he was hitting accurately. I did like his work in the pocket. He did step up to evade pressure. He more often than not would run to evade the pressure than take the sack. Really was using his legs a lot, which I don't know if this is necessarily going to work for him at the next level. They did a lot of designed runs for Pavia, and he was able to pick up big yards. He does protect the football on these runs, which we love to see for anybody that's going to be scrambling. But he's smaller in stature. He's about 6 foot, I think 207 pounds.
Yeah.
So he's not really built to take hits at the NFL level if they're going to use him in a similar way that Vandy did. But nevertheless, this is a guy that I really enjoyed watching. I think he's got some leadership traits that might translate to the next level. I don't think he's going to be a guy that necessarily wins over a locker room and starts because of it. But he's smart. He earned his master's last year in business and management over at Vanderbilt, and then he's been flipping homes with his mom for much of his life. So we know that underneath that helmet, he's got what it takes. It's just, can he convert it when we're talking about throwing it downfield and in the intermediate area?
Well, he reminds me of Baker Mayfield in the sense that he's got that like brash, cocky, I'm going to do what I want attitude. And that was a problem early on in the NFL, but when you find staffs that can kind of rein that in, and if he lands in the right spot, I think that Pavia could be successful. But I think a lot of where he lands, and we'll talk about this a lot through this cycle here, up through the draft and even post-draft, like landing spot matters a lot for these guys. Garrett Nussmeier could make or break his career. Same thing with Diego Pavia. You need to find a coach that can work with these guys. For me, I don't think Pavia starts rookie year. Nussmeier's the only guy in this group that I really think has an opportunity to potentially start, depending on where he lands. But again, even Nussmeier might be a second round guy. Taylen Green, though, over in Arkansas, he's someone I could see climbing up draft boards as we get into the Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine Game season, going to the combine, just because this guy he's freakishly athletic, Cam.
Oh, he's insane. This was early on one of my favorite guys to watch. He's 6'6" and he plays like an athlete of that size. He really uses his frame to get passes out with a lot of velocity. I've been kind of looking at his film, and when he throws the ball, it's kind of like he's like rubber banding, where he winds up very quickly and generates a lot of velocity because he is so lengthy. And for a guy that's 6'6", he's fast. This guy has wheels, and he really used it at Arkansas this past year. Able to run away from the pressure when it gets to him in the pocket, extend plays downfield. He's not necessarily a guy that's looking to immediately bail out on the play and run for yards. He's keeping his eyes down the field, and doesn't take a lot for him to wind up and throw it on the run with accuracy. With a guy like this, though, he does make some boneheaded decisions. There was a play I was watching where it was like 4th and 7, game-winning drive, and he just runs out of bounds rather than trying to make a play downfield. So with him, there's some things he needs to clean up, but he is an exciting prospect.
Yeah, his speed at that size is crazy, and if he can harness that in the NFL, he turns into like a bigger Lamar Jackson with honestly a bigger arm, and that's no slight to Lamar Jackson at all. I really like Taylen Green a lot. I think that there's a lot here. What I want to see is what we just talked about with Diego Pavia, the running backwards when you're under pressure. He gets away with it because of his speed and because of his lankiness, and he's able to get away from defenders. But it works at the college level. Those things don't work at the NFL level. He seems like a guy who's going to pick up on that pretty quick. Some of the things we'll see in Mobile is how they talk to him about this, how they work him out of those situations in 11-on-11s. I think that there's a good chance, Cam, that this could be a guy like where Jackson Dart. I mean, we were projecting him as a second, third round pick. He gets through Mobile, impresses, then he goes to the combine and impresses. They talk to him, they like him. these front offices get familiar with him, and all of a sudden he's a first-round quarterback. Taylen Green, I think, has some of those qualities. For me, he could be the surprise of the Senior Bowl, coming out of the Senior Bowl, where we're talking a lot about this kid. Kind of a la Tyler Shuck last year, where nobody really knew who he was other than the jokes of, oh, he's been in school for 8 years. What a ridiculous. All of a sudden, he gets through Mobile, and that kid showed out. And he raised his draft stock. He went in the second round. This is who Taylen Green is, I believe, this year in Mobile. I think he's going to be that guy. Now, these aren't the only quarterbacks, Cam. We've got the rest as well. We're going to spend a lot less time on these guys. These are guys who are worth paying attention to. These are the Riley Leonards. These are the Jalen Milrose, the guys who are projects. They could land somewhere. Sawyer Robertson, probably the best project out of this group. Going through his film, Cam, I felt like he was, aside from Garrett Nussmeier, probably the most pro-ready guy who's going to be at the Senior Bowl. He's got a decent deep ball. Accuracy is going to be an issue for him deep. Accuracy is going to be an issue for him across the middle of the field. Tendency to sail some throws. And really the decision-making is what concerns me with Sawyer Robertson. He's got a strong arm, but he does that Jay Cutler thing where it's like, well, my arm's so strong I can throw into bad situations. And again, these are things that are curable. What do you think about Sawyer Robertson's prospects of coming out of here with maybe a little bit of raised draft stock?
Yeah, I think this is a guy that throws with good anticipation. I liked that you called out uh, some of these like Nussmeier-esque comps where like he's probably the best passer aside from Nussmeier. And Nussmeier also shows that he's able to throw with anticipation and really trusts his arm. We also see Sawyer Robinson trusting his arm, Nate. I like him. I think he can clean up some things in his lower body. The upper body mechanics look great to me, but it's really just when he's dropping back, planting, throwing, especially on that deep ball, he has a little bit of a tendency to lift his back leg a little early and not transfer that power into the throw. So they almost kind of look like some shot puts. But I think if he cleans this up, he's probably one of my favorite like pure passers going to the Senior Bowl this year. One of the things I didn't care as much about is just his feel for pressure in the pocket. I thought that guys kind of got to him, and that could be great because you also don't want to sense pressure and immediately flee the pocket or get nervous. But he did take some sacks that I wish he would have gotten the ball out earlier when I was getting through his film.
Yeah, again, that's something you can clean up at the NFL level. It's really just the release times. Like, we've got to get them through quicker progressions. Some guys will get better at that. That was one of the things we noted with Jalen Milroe last year, was just plain and simple. Like, he's a good quarterback, but the progression is slow. He's not reading defenses as fast. He needs 5 steps out of a drop instead of 3 to get rid of the ball. And those are things that cause problems at the NFL level. Luke Altmyer, I mean, I'm going to be honest, he was my least favorite quarterback to watch here. Just not a lot to his game. He runs the ball a lot, not a super accurate arm, Cam. Is there any hope that he can fix some of this stuff and maybe be a factor come draft time? Or is this a guy who goes UDFA?
Yeah, there wasn't much that I saw on his film that I was really in love with. I think he's like maybe a lesser Pavia, a guy that can run, gets out and scrambles. They use him on some designed QB runs, but I didn't really see much from like an accuracy standpoint from him. I thought that he was really affected by pressure in the pocket. So he's got some work to do, but we've got a few months going into the draft where he could clean these things up, show out at the combine. I think he's got some wheels, and then maybe impress a couple guys where he sneaks into like the 6th, 7th round, kind of like a dart throw project guy. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes undrafted.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, anything can happen. I just don't think there's a lot of room for a guy like this in the NFL. He's not a full tool player, with not having a great arm. We see what happens to quarterbacks like that. Speaking of not a great arm, the last one here, Cole Payton, North Dakota State University. Cool that he got an invite. We love to see these D1 guys come out. But if we're being realistic, the first thing I noted when I watched his film was he's Tim Tebow with a slightly better arm. But he's got that funky throwing motion. He's got that sidearm, kind of like wing it motion. That doesn't work at the NFL level. We've seen guys, even we talked about this the other day when we were talking about Cole Payton, Brock Osweiler, 6'8". The guy threw sidearm, got batted all the time, and it was ridiculous because he was the tallest person on the field. That's kind of the territory Cole Payton's in, though not the tallest guy on the field. and that's going to be a big issue. His biggest skill is his legs. He's a guy, the type of player you see get converted to like wide receiver, tight end, or a running back coming to the NFL. But I don't see a lot of hope for him outside of that. Maybe some of these scouts and front office people see him in Mobile like, oh, we can convert this guy, so we'll pick him up after the draft.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is that if he does land in the NFL, he's probably not going to be a QB. He's big. I think he's like 6'3", 233 pounds. So he's got size to him. If he could bulk up, maybe adds another 10, 15 pounds, maybe we see him at tight end. He's a really strong runner. One of the things that was all over his film was breaking sacks in the pocket, being able to get out, extend plays, make plays with his legs. He's not very shifty, so unlike Taylen Green, who is going to put defensive backs and linebackers on skates, really what we're going to see with Cole Payton is him running through guys rather than running around them.
Yeah, and that doesn't work in the NFL. No team is going to have their quarterback running like that. Again, Cooley gets the invite. Maybe he gets a shot on a team. Maybe even they look to convert him as a special teams guy. But you're going to find, and as we go through this preview series, there are going to be a lot of guys that are here. We're going to talk about them a little bit, and you're probably never going to hear about them again. It's just the way these things go. We've got 70 guys who are going to be on the field every day. So not everybody we talk about is going to be worth it for your fantasy rosters, for your dynasty squads. Now, one guy that we've defined as a trap here, that would be Diego Pavia. Biggest bust potential, in my opinion, of guys that have actual expectations coming out of here, Cam.
Yeah, I think Pavia had all of the hype. He's been all over the covers of ESPN. He's getting a lot of coverage in the media. But really, I just don't know if his play style is going to convert at the NFL level. He's a little sporadic out there on the field. Like we said earlier, he's not very accurate on these deep throws. And unless you're scheming up a lot of short and intermediate work and using his legs, I just don't know how you build an offensive game plan around Pavia. What were your biggest flaws when you were watching him?
I think there's some decision-making issues. I think sometimes he is too quick to bail, and he relies too much on his mobility, which there are certain guys in the NFL who can do it. There are a lot of guys that can't. And when you get to that deep ball accuracy, that becomes an issue too, because in the modern NFL, you're throwing the ball down the field, and you've got to have a quarterback who can. He reminds me a lot of Spencer Rattler, between the attitude and the skill set and the being mobile, but probably not at the NFL level like he was at college. I see these two as very similar players, and I just don't see it working out for Pavia, regardless really of where he lands.
He's a guy that, when you get him outside of the pocket, he can make the throws on the run, but you don't want to build an offense around guys that are outside of the pocket at the NFL level. So I like the Spencer Rattler comp. I was thinking kind of like the absurdity of Kyler Murray when he's out of the pocket a little bit, but without the ability to actually make those throws downfield.
Yep, 100%. All right, folks, so that is going to do it for us here. If you've got more questions about this Senior Bowl, make sure you head on over to our Discord. The link is in the show description below. We're going to be there all week. Make sure you follow along, like, and subscribe. We're going to have a ton of content breaking these players down so you can make the right decisions for your dynasty squads. For Cam White, I am Nate Paulvote, folks. Good luck.